So if you guys are just tuning in for the first time, this is Barbara Talks and I'm Barbara. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, so if you guys would like your own natal chart reading, synastry reading, progressed natal chart reading, mini natal chart reading, the information for all of that is going to be in the description box below. You guys can select which reading you guys would like underneath the readings tab, and then an email window should pop up and we will go from there. Now, also, if you guys would like your own business guidance, so you can either do a meeting with me, okay, so one-on-one meeting, or if you guys would like to do one-on-one business guidance, the program, I have that on my website as well. If you guys would like to start your own business, or if you guys have started your own business and you need some assistance and guidance, definitely send me an email and we'll go from there. Welcome to everyone joining this live. Welcome, welcome, welcome. What is new? I'm going to be answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. What is new? What's the 411? What should we talk about today? Welcome to everyone joining. Thank you for joining back over here now for the new live. What should we talk about today? Let me know if you guys are here in the room. I'm going to be answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. What should we talk about today? I see some of you guys in the chat. Make sure you guys like the video. You can double tap the screen to like the live. Obviously, if you guys so choose to do so. There you guys are, perfect. How are you guys doing? I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. Hey Nate, hey Mary, how you guys doing? Thank you so much for the likes, you guys. You said, would I ever want to make videos on numerology? Also, do I have any experience with the crystal labradorite? Yes, back in the day, I used to be super into crystals and I did play around with that crystal as well. I don't remember my experience because it's been so long. Hey Gia, how are you doing? But what you guys could do, anytime you guys get a crystal, you guys can meditate with it or sleep with it and see what kind of information might come through. Now, the thing is, you know, I don't know if this is just my opinion. Like, I kind of feel like there's more power in just like a larger crystal. Okay. So, cause the ones that I used to get were like the tiny little ones. So I'm not sure how much those actually, you know, how potent they are energetically. I can't confirm or deny it or anything. You know what I mean? That's just my own opinion. So it's this. So definitely if you guys are interested in working with crystals or there's a specific one that calls you, definitely either purchase it and see what comes through, right? Meditate with it, all these things to see what kind of information might come through for you because there could be something there for you. So it's this. Now, in terms of numerology, and you're asking about me making videos on numerology, I mean, it's not something that I am specialized in. I know very, very surface level numerology. When I do your guys' readings, I speak on the numerological aspect of things in terms of like very, very surface level numerology. But yes, for now, I'm just in the astrological field. You said Mercury retrograde that we're in. Yes, we're in Mercury retrograde. It is currently in Aries. Welcome to all the people joining. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. Make sure you guys like the live. If you guys so choose to, you guys can double tap on the live to like the live. What would you guys like to know? I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. What should we talk about today? Do you guys want to know anything about your natal charts, astrology, metaphysics, the metaphysical world, psychic life, being a psychic, how to get in tune with your psychic gifts and abilities? What should we talk about? Energy, energy work, energy healing. Hey Esperanza, hey Adam, how are you guys doing? I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. Thank you for being here, Nate. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Enjoy. What should we talk about today? Welcome to all the people joining. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. Yes, this is way better than the other side. I didn't even realize because I didn't realize the clocks changed, the times changed, the lighting, all these things. So yes, this is the new live. Welcome, concerned. I had to switch sides because it was so bright over there. Like it was really, really bright and I'm not used to that level of brightness. So I had to switch over here and then I just decided to go vertical. You said, so your chart says you're a Leo rising, Scorpio sun, Capricorn moon, and North Node in Aries. What does that mean? Can you tell me what house do you have your North Node in? Thanks so much for the likes, you guys. Scorpio sun, Capricorn moon, you're all about the hustle. Essentially, you want the power and the money, and you might even be interested in acting with the Libra or the Leo rising, okay? Thank you. Yes. Oh my gosh, we totally jumped timelines. I feel like I jumped timelines. I don't know about you guys, but I definitely feel it. Oh my goodness. It's like a whole new world. Welcome to all the people joining. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. What should we talk about today, you guys? What's new? What's happening over in the third dimensional plane? I just feel like I've been in my crown chakra. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. Is there anything you guys would like to know? Generally, like North Node in Aries, because your South Node is in Libra, it's a lifetime of the self, figuring out who you are, what your needs and desires in this lifetime, all these things, okay? You said you don't see a house, but you see the degree. Okay, if you can go on any astrological websites, you can go on Google, type birth chart, and then put in all your information. Because if you know your rising, you probably know your birth time, right? So it should give you a house for your North Node when you go on there, okay? Go on any astrology website with a birth chart and then see what house is it in and then come back here, okay? But overall, in a nutshell, North Node in Aries, okay, is basically about the self. So this lifetime is figuring out who you are, okay? What are your like wants, needs, and desires, developing the personality. You said becoming a medium, where to start. Okay, so here's the thing. You're gonna know whether or not you have mediumship abilities. Hey Silvers, how are you doing? Hey T, how are you guys doing today? What's new? Well, there you go. You said you're an actress. That's perfect for Leo rising. That's perfect, right? And then you have all the other energies that want the money. You said, how do you find your future wife with Venus in the 8th house? Okay, here's the thing. There's a few things that you can do if you're looking for your partner. Thanks so much for the likes, you guys. Yes, and double tap on the actual live itself to like the live. For whatever reason, it's not popping up, so it is what it is. But I'm seeing your hearts, so thank you so much, you guys. Okay, so for future partner, you guys can look at the 7th house ruler and what house is it, and then that's gonna tell you like how you might meet them and what their vibe might be, okay? But I have a video on this, okay, on my channel here. You want to look, okay, so you're looking for a wife, which is women, right? So if you're into women, you're gonna look at the moon and you're gonna look at the Venus and you're gonna look at the aspects of the moon and the Venus, and that's gonna tell you the personality that you are pulling through or that you are attracted to, okay? So that's for people who are into women. If you're into men and masculines, you're going to look at the sun, you're going to look at the Mars, you're going to look at Saturn, okay? And the aspects to all of this, and that's going to tell you what kind of masculine energies are you pulling through, okay? So it's this, but Venus in the 8th house, like just that isn't really going to say like where you will find this person, okay? You want to look at the 7th house ruler, it'll give you more information. I'm doing well, thanks. How are you doing? You say you definitely get Capricorn vibes. You said more serious than you are in the best of ways. You said, okay, just to start being a medium. So back to that question. Okay, so here's the thing. Here is the thing. If you, like, you're already gonna know if you have mediumship abilities, you know what I mean? Because you already would have had certain experiences in terms of the mediumship realm. Now, people say you're either psychic or you're not. The way that I see it is like everyone has some form of intuition, right? So everyone has some form of gut feeling, gut instinct, right? But then you have to start exercising that. So to start exercising your psychic gifts and abilities, you have to clear your vessel first, right? So you have to clear it from food, from junk food. You have to exercise. You have to basically raise your vibration, because to communicate with the other side, you have to raise your frequency to catch them, right? Or not catch them, maybe that's not the term, but to like, you know, match their energy essentially, right? Because it's like on the other side, they are in a different dimension, right? So if you're down here and you're very much about the earthly plane and you're very much about the earthly realm and, you know, you're very much about the day-to-day and all these things, you're kind of in the earth's energies, right? So you have to raise your frequency out of that to basically be able to connect with individuals on the other side. So that's the first thing, okay? It's this. Now, the way that I see it, the trajectory that I see is like you're clairsentient, and then you have an empath, and then you have the mediumship abilities, right? So it's this, and then also you have to understand that when you're communicating with anybody on the other side, it's going to be telepathic, okay? It's going to be through the mind. Hey, you guys are awesome too. Oh, it's perfect. Exactly what you said. You said start small and then you build up to being a medium. Exactly, because you have to, it's like a different way of thinking. It's hard to explain because it's like, it's exactly this. It's baby steps. Like it's like accessing a different part of your brain, right? Because most people, they are in like the logical part of the brain, okay? Whichever side that is, I'm not sure right now, but they're more in the logical part of the brain. They're more on like the day-to-day and like the linear way of thinking, right? So for you to access anything psychic and metaphysical, you have to go into the other side of the brain, essentially, right? You're going more into basically the feminine energy is basically what that is, okay? That's how you access the psychic planes, is by going into those feminine energies, right? So you have to come out of the logic, the day-to-day, right? The linear way of thinking into something that's a little bit more abstract. So it's like shifting, right? So a lot of the time you have like, okay, so here's the thing, okay? If you're more feminine energy dominant in your field, okay? Like in your energy field, if you're more feminine energy dominant, well, in that particular case, it's going to be easier for you to access this, right? So you'll see a lot of spirituality from back in the day was actually trying to teach people who are more in their masculine energy and masculines in general how to access this because they're more in the masculine energy. So for some people, if they're more in the feminine, you're already more naturally inclined, right, to go into this direction. I really, really hope that that makes sense. If you're more in the masculine energy, which is again, right, the logic, the day-to-day, you know, just like the linear way of being and thinking, you're going to have to switch out of that and you're going to have to figure out how to access that feminine energy. Now, you have different techniques that a lot of these books and scriptures were trying to teach people, right, who were, again, predominantly masculine energy based, right? Because if you're more feminine energy based, it's kind of coming to you naturally already. I hope that makes sense, right? You're kind of already a little bit more tapped in. So if you're more in the other energy, right, they're going to teach you things like, you know, meditation, like trying to get into that theta state, basically like when you're in that state that's like right before you fall asleep. So you have to learn to train yourself to be in that state at all times, essentially, okay? I think that that's what they're all trying to teach people, is to basically get to that state but be permanently in it, right? And then coming in and out of it depending on what it is that you're doing. I hope that that makes sense, okay? Yeah, exactly. This is what I mean. You said you definitely have mediumship gifts and healing abilities. Exactly. So you know, do you know what I mean? Like you're usually aware of it from a young age. So it's just a matter of actually exercising. It's like a muscle, right? Because it's already there. So some people, when they're kids, they are aware of this, right? And then they shut it off because of fear. Usually it starts with the original two caregivers. As you guys know, I'm not a psychologist. That's always my disclaimer, okay? But it's this. So it's like usually society, or sometimes your friends when you were a kid, you know, could have labeled you a certain way and then you kind of internalize this and suppress this, right? So it's a matter of taking that energy off, right? And accessing more, again, the higher vibrations, right? Hey, everyone. Yes, you guys can definitely ask questions. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts, the psychic world, psychic life. You said you do think everyone can be psychic if they practice. I think they can. I personally think they can. Some people who are psychic don't think so. Some people think that you're either born with it or you're not. I think that everyone has this within them. It's just a matter of accessing it. Now, the thing is, I have a video on here, okay, called The Connection Between Cognitive Dissonance, Psychic Gifts and Abilities, Trauma, and Spiritual Awakening, because all of this is connected. Usually, you'll see that people who are highly psychic have experienced some sort of trauma when they were younger to have been out of body, okay, to be in that cognitive dissonance energy, right? So this is why sometimes it can happen to people later on in life, right? They go through some sort of traumatic event, they experience that intense cognitive dissonance moment, right? And then you have a spiritual awakening, and then your gifts come online then, okay? So check out that video. It's going to be under my metaphysical playlist. I kind of explain, obviously, more in depth, right? I'm kind of giving it to you guys in a nutshell here, but I go in more in depth as to the way that I see it, at least, how the psychic gifts and abilities come online. Because the thing is, for a lot of the time, when you look at, let's say, Scorpio energy and onwards, right, in a natal chart, they experience either a lot of fear or something where they go into self-preservation energy, so they're out of body, okay, when they're younger, right? So because you're out of body, you kind of develop this as basically a survival mechanism is really, really what that is, okay? I use Western astrology. Yay, I'm glad that you're here. Hey, Soul Form. I use the Placidus tropical system in Western astrology. You said feminine, woman, womb. Exactly. Then you said tomb, the unseen, the dark, unknown to most. Flowers, babies, lazars, anything that can come out of it. I love that. That sounds like poetry. I love that, Esperanza. Very, very nice. You said you have North Node in the first house in Cancer. What does that mean? Okay, so North Node in the first house, you're mastering the self in this lifetime, okay? The seventh house would be your South Node, so that means your previous lifetime was a lot of sacrifice probably for other people, first of all. Second of all, your relationships, because it's the seventh house South Node, could be past life people pulling you out of where it is that you're trying to go, okay? So you don't want to get distracted. That's important, okay, first and foremost. Now also, North Node in the first house, part of the life purpose is to figure out who you are, what are your likes, wants, needs, and desires in this lifetime. Just learning about the self. It's a lifetime of the self, essentially, okay? You could be a manager, you could be an entrepreneur, you could be you know, like self-made, like all these things, right? With that North Node in the first house. Now, Cancer, you have Cancer in here, and then you have Capricorn in the South Node, which is interesting because your previous lifetime could have been more so about hustle, okay? You know, very much about the earthly plane. In this lifetime, it's more so feminine energy leaning with that Cancer energy in there. Now, this could also manifest sometimes into North Node in the first house in Cancer. You know, sometimes it can be your homeland, okay? So sometimes you might be interested in, you know, your homeland, working with it in one way, shape, or form. Like maybe you are, let's say, you know, someone who's on the board. I mean, not everyone's going to be the president, right? But something along these lines where you're working for the country, okay? Sometimes that Cancer energy can manifest in that way as well. Hey, how are you guys doing? I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. If you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. You said you have Venus in Aries, you're an Aquarius sun, Sagittarius rising, and Virgo moon. Nice. I'm just going back up to see what you guys were saying up here. And then it's this, okay, in terms of, I just saw your mediumship question once again. So then it's this, okay, in terms of the more you practice it, the more you trust in it, right? So you kind of have to learn to trust whatever information comes through and then speaking on that as soon as you get it, right? And then that's how you train yourself. Like it's literally you're training yourself. Like there isn't really anybody that can teach you, because the way that I see it is like people can kind of assist you in terms of strengthening it, like your psychic gifts and abilities, and they can give you all these tools, but it's still up to you to see how does it come through your body, if that makes sense, because different people are going to receive information differently. And that's like, you know, when people talk about the clairs and all these things, it'll help you compartmentalize, so it'll help you kind of like hone in on the energy more, if that makes sense, right? So you'll know like your clairaudience. So a lot of the time the clairs are connected to already in terms of like your gifts in the real life. Like, okay, the way that I can explain it is like, let's say you're someone who's very like sensitive to sounds, you know, you're going to be clairaudient probably, right? If you're someone who thinks a lot, you might be claircognizant. If you're someone who's super visual, you might be clairvoyant, right? So it depends already and like the current physical reality, like what, like which one of these realms you're already in, okay? If that makes sense. And then you can build on the psychic gift from that, right? But eventually, and then you can even use like certain tools to confirm things for you, right? That's what tarot cards are for, and pendulums and all these things. But ultimately, you want to get to the point where you're not using anything anymore and you're able to hone the energy in, right? But all these things, you can kind of look at it as like training wheels or tools, right? Helping you hone in the gift that eventually you don't need anything, right? You know, when you're learning to ride a bike, eventually you take off the training wheels, right? So it's this. It's basically this when you're kind of honing the energy in, because then you learn how it comes through for you, okay? I believe in degree theory. Depends which one, okay? Because there's different types of degree theories. I look at the one by Nicholas Stoyanovich. Oh, good, concerned. I'm glad. Which one was your favorite video? Let me know if you want to share, that is. Yeah, exactly, Esperanza. No, it was so bright. It was so bright, and it was so interesting because when I was planning out my day, I was like, okay, hold on. I was like, do I want to be in the daylight, or do I want to just come back in the evening and do the live in the evening? And then I kind of went back and forth like Libra life, okay? And I was like kind of planning, it's Libra and Scorpio, because I'm like thinking like what's the best case scenario? And then I was like, okay, whatever, let me just do like the daylight one, not realizing that like literally the sun, like first of all is coming out, second of all it completely changed like sides. It's so bright. I was like trying to keep my eyes open, but we're here. I'm over here on the other side now. It's still there, like it's still kind of in action, okay, but it's not over here, which is great. I'm glad that it's outside. Like I love seeing the sun. It's just like, it's definitely intense when it's like right in your face. You know what I mean? Nicholas Stoyanovich, yes, I have a video, okay, on here, and anybody who is maybe new here, okay? I have a video, and it should be under my miscellaneous astrology. I have a video about the degree theory. I have one for the sun. I have one for the moon, I believe, okay? So check it out. if you want to learn more. All things Scorpio. Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad that you liked those videos. Let's see, you said Saturn square Mars. Does this mean you're always beefing with people in leadership positions? You never go with your manager? I mean, I could see that. It's also with men too, by the way, okay? Saturn square Mars. And authoritative figures. Yeah, it could be combative energy when it comes to any of these individuals. You said, why in one chart you have Saturn in the third and in the other one you have Saturn in the second? It depends. Sometimes you're looking at whole signs. Sometimes you're looking at Placidus. So it depends. You guys are so funny in the chat. Oh my goodness. You said it's like, which topic was it that we were talking about, Esperanza? You said it's like really hardship / sorrow when it brings such beautiful gifts into the presence of God. Oh my gosh, the survival mechanism. Exactly. I think we were talking about the psychic gifts and abilities and how they come online. It's when you're out of body, basically, okay? And something has to happen for you to go out of body. I met someone once and it was so interesting because you could tell that this person was like probably on their first life. Like this person was so just like blissfully ignorant. And I was like, wow, you know, and it was so interesting because they were telling me, now here is the thing, here is the kicker, because they said that they never experienced any trauma in their life. And in my head, I was like, maybe you forgot about it or disassociated or disconnected from it, because that's hard to believe. But overall, like other than that, you know, they were very just like very first life energy. And you know what's so funny? Another thing too. Oh my goodness. So I was always like into this world, okay? Even when I worked in retail, and it was so funny because it's like when I worked at my retail job, we got a new hire and I worked there for a long time. Actually, that was one of my longest jobs ever. I worked there for 7 years. Which is a Saturn cycle, you guys. Isn't that interesting? I have to go back and check to see actually what was going on with the transits, but I was literally there for 7 years. And this is why you have the 7-year itch, my theory, okay? My own theory, why I have the 7-year itch in relationships, because the Saturn cycle is usually 7 years. So that's usually why relationships end for a lot of people after 7 years anyway. So I was there for 7 years, and you know, one of these people started working and this person was just like so excited. And I say to my manager, because at this point we're like friends, okay? I say to my manager and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that person's like so excited to be alive. And then my manager was like, it must be their first life. And I died. Oh my goodness, I was dying. I'm like literally like, you can tell. But it's nice. I mean, good for them. You know, everything's exciting for them and they're like, wee about everything. I don't do numerology readings now. In my natal chart reading, I talk about your day number and your life path number, but that's like the extent of it. Like I'm very, very surface level with numerology. Like I'll say maybe 2 sentences and then we go into the astrological aspect of things. So I'm more in the astrology world. Like I know about numerology, but I don't do like a full-blown numerology reading. I just find that astrology is way more accurate than numerology. Do you know what I mean? Because like astrology is like literally like very, very detailed, right? Astrology or like numerology is like very general. Thank you. You guys are so kind in the chats. You said, so your manager was on the bus with the rest of us. Yes, honestly, I would love to know because I know that manager was a Gemini, but I'm sure that manager had Scorpio in their chart. Like now in retrospect, obviously, okay, I don't remember. This was so many years ago, but I'm pretty sure like thinking back, when I would think back, I would think and I'd be like, okay, yeah, the Gemini's there, but there was definitely Scorpio A house energy going on or like Pluto aspects, because let me tell you about this manager too, you guys. Okay, oh my gosh, the manager was so funny, okay? This is very like Scorpio or like, I guess maybe even shadow Scorpio, I'm not sure. So that manager, okay, at that point in time had 2 different cars because they smoked, but they didn't want their family to know that they smoked. So they had 2 different cars, one car where they smoked and, you know, just drove around for themselves. And then the other car where they picked up their family in. So the family wouldn't find out that they smoked. And oh my goodness, like, is that not like the most like Scorpionic type of thing? Like living in that way? I'm just looking what you guys are saying in here. Yeah, exactly. There's so much in numerology because you also have the other one. Hold on, what is it? Gematria? There's also that one. There's that one. Then there's the one that doesn't count the 9. Then there's the one that counts the 9. So there's like a lot of different things. But I like to look at everything. Like I've done so many readings from people. I'm actually not a Gemini, interestingly enough. I'm not a Gemini, you guys. You said they were brand new. Exactly. I've just learned a lot in general throughout life. You said, yes, you're super sensitive to the atmosphere stuff. No overhead lighting is allowed in your house. No way. Like, I love the sunlight. Absolutely. Like I love being in the sun, but usually I'm wearing sunglasses. Do you know what I mean? So I'm so used to wearing sunglasses that if I don't have them, I'm just like, oh my goodness, like I need them, you know? Let's see. You already asked about your future wife, 7th house Gemini, moon in the 5th house. Okay, her story. Let me know what your 7th house ruler is, okay? So check and see what sign do you have occupying your 7th house, because you said your 7th house Gemini. So is 7th house for you in the sign of Gemini? If it is, then tell me what house is your Mercury in, okay? So first see what is the sign and what is the planet connected to that sign, okay? And then let me know. You said pretty much Gemini talks too much and they talk too much so bad. You said it twice. Scorpio try to care. Exactly. Gemini talk about anything and everything. You know, and that's why Geminis, no offense to the Geminis, unless you guys have some Scorpio in there or a house or Pluto aspects, they're not the best at keeping secrets because they just talk so much that it just rolls off their tongue. They're just talking and talking and talking and it just comes out. Not even on purpose, because I find Geminis to be like naive. They are not malicious at all, actually, in my opinion. Again, if it's like a Gemini energy without anything else going on in there in terms of the rest of the energies. But yeah, Gemini is like this. They're talking, and then they spill the beans. And it's just like, okay, why did you have to say all that information? You said, do I believe in astrology, magic, or manifesting with the planets? Do you know what I believe in? Trying to transcend your natal charts. That's what I believe in right now. That's kind of where I'm at. Looking at your natal chart and trying to see how you can overcome the natal chart so it's not controlling your life. Because it's kind of annoying how it's controlling everything, in my own opinion, allegedly. You said, why do some charts have so many difficult, challenging positions? It's such a difficult life. Okay, if you want my own opinion, I think the people who have the challenging aspects usually have the bigger purpose in life. That's just my own opinion, okay? Allegedly. So it's like usually when you have something that you're meant to do, you're going to see the higher up you go in frequency and vibration, the more you're trying to activate your purpose and the more you're trying to reclaim your energy back to you, the more you get energetically targeted. So usually people who have a difficult life usually have a bigger purpose in this lifetime, okay? And everything is kind of taking place to throw you off your path. Just my own opinion, okay? So you can't kind of succumb to it, in my own opinion. I don't do any predictions. I don't do predictive readings. I don't do any of that. You said, okay, Mercury in the 9th. Okay, so if your 7th house is Gemini, and then now you have your Mercury in the 9th house, so your 7th house ruler is in the 9th house, you actually might have a foreign spouse, or you might meet your spouse abroad. They might be a different religious background than you. They might be a different cultural background than you. You might meet them while you're traveling, okay? The 7th house ruler in the 9th house. You might meet them while you're at school, pursuing education, higher education, the 7th house ruler in the 9th house, okay? So these are all places where you can meet this individual. School, overall, higher education, traveling. Let's say, you know, you're a tour guide. You can meet them this way. Let's say you're at a business conference in a country abroad. It could be like this, okay? Let's say you are part of some sort of international relations club or whatever job. You can meet them like this, okay? So that's that 7th house ruler in the 9th house. Now, if you want more information, I have a video on here. It should be under my miscellaneous playlist, the 7th house ruler through the houses, okay, if you want more information. But it's this in a nutshell, basically. The 7th house ruler in the 9th house. Hey, I am sending you energy too, or good vibes. How are you doing? You said someone also said regarding having a higher purpose with a more difficult chart that it's never too late. No, it's never too late. You just want to have the awareness, okay, of what's going on. I've always been like this. You said, how will the Saturn transit? I don't do any sort of predictive readings. I don't do predictions. You said you have Mars, Gemini, 7th house, Mercury, and Leo. Yeah, Gemini and Leo. Those are the two chatty energies, okay? Which is nice. That energy works for Scorpio. Do you know what I mean? Because then Scorpio doesn't have to pull teeth to get information. They just willingly give the information, right? Gemini and Leo, especially Leo. Leo is going to tell you everything, especially if you're talking about them. They'll tell you everything. The Leo energy, okay? But yeah, when it comes to secrets and these types of things, they're not like Gemini and Leo, okay? These two energies are not like secret keeping energies. They're just kind of like an open book. Friends with everybody, which is fine, right? Like we have different people in the world, right? But if you're a Scorpionic energy and then you say something to one of these people, they might kind of spill the beans. You're welcome. You said, what do I think about the Pluto synastry between generations? For example, Pluto and Leo boomers, Pluto, Scorpio millennials, now Pluto in Aquarius. What do I think about these square aspects? Oh, okay. I see what you're asking, like the squaring Pluto to the Pluto. It's going to be a lot of change and transformation. Here's the thing, the way that I see it, okay, is it depends on you as a person, right? Because if you're not resistant to change and you're not resistant to transformation, you don't get affected by anything, really, right? Because you're open to the change, you're open to the transformation, and you're constantly changing and transforming. So it depends on your chart as well, right? With the Pluto square Pluto, so you're talking about the Pluto transit squaring the Pluto in the chart. Most people and most humans are about comfort, right? And they want things to stay the same. Well, because of the times that we're living in, it's not going to be like that, unfortunately, right? So you have to get used to the change and the times changing and all these things. So it depends on you, because if you're more Plutonian or Scorpionic, or you have these aspects already taking place in your chart, you're used to changing and transforming and moving on, right? Most people aren't. So it's like, it depends on you and the transits, right? Because it's like, if you're someone who's used to change and transformation, Pluto square Pluto is fine. If you're not and you're holding on for dear life, well, at that point in time, it's going to shake your world up. That's just what Pluto does. So it depends, you know? Hey, DJ, how are you doing? What's new? You said so true. You're so blunt. You tell all your business, yet you're super secretive. Yeah, exactly. You said, or maybe it's fortunate that we're living in these most interesting times. I love it. I love it, right? Because again, I'm Plutonian and I'm Scorpionic, so I'm good. You know, I love the change and the transformation, but most people, you have to look at people, right? Because a lot of people create their identity over like their ego, right? Their ego is like most of their identity, and that's not who they truly are deep down inside. So as we go through Pluto and Aquarius, a lot of people are going to be shaken to the core if they are operating out of their ego, unfortunately, because we're going more into the heart-centered way of being and living, right? When you're in your heart space, you're more authentic and you're more true to yourself. So if you have more of an ego identity, which is like the lower chakras, it's usually on external things. And as we go through the higher vibrations, a lot of the external reality is falling off, allegedly, in my own opinion, right? So if people are holding on to that for dear life, then their identity gets triggered. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense, okay? So when you create your ego and you attach your ego to external things outside of you, and that thing is no longer there, your whole world and your whole foundation gets shaken up, okay? So that's why sometimes people, you know, let's say they created their whole identity on their relationship. That's why sometimes people have a hard time when that relationship is done or ending, or that person wants to leave. They're clinging on, right? And you have to look at that for everything external, right? When people have an externally created identity. If you create your identity from within and internally, right, you're not dependent on anything outside of you. And that's what everybody wants to get to. And that's what these times are about, in my own opinion, allegedly, right? That's what Aquarius energy is. You said that's most people. Exactly. Exactly. You said, what about Leo rising with Scorpio moon energy? Is that a balance of secrets? Well, you have Scorpio moon, right? So internal, here's the thing, okay? It depends, right? Because Leo rising is just the energy you're projecting outward, the Leo rising energy, okay? Scorpio moon is your internal world. You can almost look at it as like the soul self, right? So internally you're private because it's Scorpio, right? Like that energy can keep secrets. The Leo rising, because it's the external energy, is kind of assisting you in getting to where it is that you're trying to go. I really, really hope that that makes sense, okay? So it's not like that energy can, well, it depends. It depends on the rest of the energies in the chart to see if you're chattier or more private. But generally, Scorpio moon is more private about their internal world. They're private about their plans, or at least they should be, okay? When you have Scorpio moon energy. But Leo rising, sometimes Leo can overshare, right? Especially if someone can hook into the energy for you, they might start asking you about you, and then they're going to find out the information of what it is that you're trying to do. And also, on top of everything else, most people don't have the best intentions. So if they see that you're moving ahead or you are progressing, they can energetically interfere with that with their thoughts. That's just how it is, unfortunately, okay? People don't have the best intentions. It's just how it is down here on this earth plane. So it's best to keep things to yourself until those things come into fruition. Other things you can talk about, do you know what I mean? Like whatever, what you did yesterday, what you ate for breakfast, you know, like all the things that the everyday person likes to talk about, right? But when it comes to your plans and it's something that's not, you know, come to fruition yet, or let's say someone that you like or someone that you're dating, or it's new or it's fresh, best to keep it, you know, under wraps until it's come into fruition. I hope that makes sense, okay? Thank you. You're amazing as well. Oh my goodness, you said you were homeless 3 times. You don't know what ego is anymore. I hope that you've overcome that, Silverist. Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, Sue loves astrology. Hey, how are you doing? What's new? I'm just seeing you in here. You're saying sometimes it's like you should keep to yourself because people love to get the wrong idea. You wish you could share with you though what's going on. It's pretty big. You got to go through transformation and patience. That's key. Yeah, while you're in the phase of building, I wouldn't say anything to anybody, in my own opinion. If it was up to me, I wouldn't say anything to anybody ever. If it was up to me, honestly, when I travel, when I go somewhere, I don't say anything to anybody until I'm there. Most of the time, until I'm at the airport or until I arrive. Okay. So yeah, there's no need, because okay, energetically, you guys have to understand it like this. Okay. When you guys have something that you're trying to do, okay, it's an idea, right? It's new, it's like this baby, right? And it's like, if you're keeping it to yourself, it's not tainted energetically, okay? If you say it to someone, you are now inviting that person into your idea or whatever it is. Let's say you're traveling, right? Or whatever you're doing. Let's say you're going out. I learned this back in my clubbing days, okay? When I would go out in the nighttime. I was just saying this to someone the other day. Back then, if I noticed when I would post on my story, when I would go out, like, and I'm out, right? That night, we would always, like me and my friends, something strange would happen and like weird things would happen. So that's when I realized, I'm like, oh my gosh, when I post, people attach their energy to what I'm doing, okay? And it doesn't matter whether their vibes are good or not, they're attaching their energy, right? They're now in that thing with you. It's not closed. The energy is now, you've invited other people into it, right? That's when I learned that, like way back then. Okay, so now I just don't post anything, even when I'm doing something, even whether it's the weekend, whatever, I don't post anything until after, okay? Because unless you want to invite all these people in to whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's a trip, whether it is your idea, whether it's a business idea, whether it is whatever, okay? You're now inviting all these energies. Now, let's say it's something that you want to create or something you want to bring through and you share with someone, okay? And you're now inviting their energy in and they can interfere with their thoughts, okay? It's just how it is because we're telepathic, right? And like, because we're telepathic, you might pick up on that and then they can kind of divert you energetically from what it is that you're trying to do, okay? You're welcome. You said, isn't it so much of our self-understanding, getting to know the conflicting energies in our chart? Exactly. You said Christian people don't say a lot of plans or ideas because the quote unquote devils or demons can screw it up and you're not religious. Yes, exactly. You see that in a lot of different religions. They have that in a lot of different religions. If you read about them, you'll see that a lot of religions are very similar, okay? At the base, okay? Obviously now you have the different, intricacies here and there, right? But mostly like the root of them all is very, very similar when you start to learn about it. I'm just going back up to see what else you guys were saying up here. Sagittarius, what would you like to know about Sagittarius energy? Sagittarius energy, I was thinking about Sagittarius energy recently, actually. You know what's interesting about Sag? This is what I was thinking about Sag because I was just explaining this to someone the other day. Honestly, I feel like I talk about astrology 24/7, literally, okay? So Sag, what's interesting with them, okay? One of the things, there's so many interesting things about all of the signs, right? But with Sag, what I was thinking about with them the other day when I was talking to someone, what I was saying was Sag is sandwiched between Scorpio and Capricorn, okay? Both Scorpio and Capricorn are looking for, first of all, Scorpio is looking for power, and in the current world that we're living in, wealth equals power and control, okay? And money. Then we have Capricorn. Capricorn is status, and Capricorn wants the wealth, they want the finances, they want the status, like they want to climb the higher echelons of society, right? Now we have Sag that's like right in between these two energies, right? And I find that Sag energetically, a lot of people kind of skim through Sag. Like they kind of look at Sag and they're like, oh, it's ruled by Jupiter, so Sag is just fun and optimistic. Like that part is there, but there's more to Sag, okay? Because Sag is now sandwiched in between these two energies. So Sag has this aspect to them that they are looking for power and control, and they also want the status, okay? Because they're literally between Scorpio and Capricorn. But Sag's biggest struggle is that they are mutable. I'm always going to say this. They're mutable, so they're changing, they're switching. They want to do this in the morning, and then by the evening they change their mind, or they forget about it, or whatever. The next thing that catches their attention, okay? So Sag needs to ground, right? They need to ground because it's like you're coming out of Scorpio, you're going into Sag. The 12th house of Sag is Scorpio within the Sagittarius energy. So Sag is the outward expression of Scorpio, yes, right? So you will see them interested in get-rich-quick schemes and sometimes gambling. And again, they want the money and they want the freedom. They are the freedom-loving sign, but they're not at Capricorn yet, which is Capricorn is grounding and discipline, okay? So Sag has to learn discipline to get to the energy that they're trying to get to. So that's basically what's going on with Sagittarius energy. What's interesting about Libras? So much, okay? Libra. You said, do I believe in Hinduism gods? You must be aware of astrology. Yes, astrology is from Hinduism, absolutely. All the deities, I know of them. I know a lot about all of the religions and I learned about all these things, but I think that there's only one creator and I think that there's only one God from what I've learned so far, okay, in my own opinion. But yes, they definitely have a lot of deities in Hinduism, the gods that you're referring to. You said, what is interesting about Libras? Okay, Libra, okay? Libra is all about people, essentially, right? So Libra is the connecting energy. They're now gathering all the people together, okay? And the only thing that all these people have in common is the Libra person, right? Libra's social, they're the social butterfly, they're charismatic. Now, the most interesting thing about Libra, okay, and I posted about this on my shorts, okay? So if you're new here, check it out, is Libra will find themselves in third-party situations a lot of the time. And this stems from, especially if you have it in the big three, so the sun being the father, the moon being the mother, and then your rising sign as well, okay? You tend to incarnate into homes and environments that are chaotic. So Libra also has a lot of repressed anger that they have to address because they're always trying to people please everybody. And because they grew up in a chaotic environment, they're always balancing everybody around them. So you will see Libras in a lot of either third-party situations or situations with friends, okay? Where there's 3 friends or just like an odd number of people where they're trying to juggle and balance people, okay? So that being said, you have to basically transcend that energy with the Libra energy, okay? Is this whole balancing everybody, and that's connected to the original 2K Eras. Now, I'm not a psychologist and all this, okay? That's always my disclaimer, but it's this. What else are you guys saying in here? Libra is about thinking. Yes, that's there as well. Libra is about the mind. Sometimes Libra can go into too much of understanding everything from every perspective. So that's why sometimes they can be very forgiving because they can be like, oh, I get where they're coming from because they can see it from that angle as well. So that's why they're good at negotiations and things like law, where they can kind of twist things around, but they can also be very manipulative, you guys. You know, and the thing is with Libras, you know, they can be good looking, right? And then they can use that because they're also very smart, right? So it's kind of like, you don't expect it with them, you know? You said if someone has a public life or career, how would one prevent people to psychic interfere and maintain peace? That's such a good question, okay? So with the public life, allegedly, my opinion, have you noticed that they always change their name and they have a different name, right? So when you change your name, okay, basically astrologically or not astrologically, what's happening metaphysically, okay? What's happening metaphysically when you change your name is people don't connect to your energy anymore, okay? Who you are, what your given name was, they connect to the new energy. So that's one of the ways that your energy can be protected, okay? Your energy gets cloaked when you change your name, okay? You take on a new identity and now everyone connects to that energy. They're not connecting to you. So that's one of the ways that you can psychically protect yourself, okay? A lot of these people have a lot of psychics and magicians working for them, allegedly, in my opinion. What else are you guys saying in here? You said you came back to say you can't stand Libra sometimes. You said Venus in Libra, good looking lawyer here. Yeah, Venus in Libra tends to be good looking, but Venus in Libra can also end up in third party situations, like always trying to balance 2 people. Or like Libra can also, it depends. You have the divine version of the sign and then you have the shadow version of the sign. The shadow version of Libra is like you have 1 foot in and 1 foot out, right? So they're also that non-committal energy because they're air. So it's like Libra doesn't want to be alone, and that's the struggle with Libra, right? So because they don't want to be alone, they're always going to have somebody there, and they're the sign of partnership, right? So they'll always have somebody, right? They will always have someone, whether it's a buddy or a best friend. They'll always have someone around, but they'll always kind of be looking, okay? Because they're always kind of looking for this other person to complete them, or again, this like one true love type of vibe, okay, with Libra. But it's like, again, with Libra, it's like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Energetically sometimes. You say you have Venus in and Mercury in Libra and both in Scorpio. You said, what are the strengths and weaknesses of air signs? What professions for air sign dominant people? Okay, professions for air sign dominant. Anything to do with talking, anything to do with people, anything to do with your ideas and the mind, essentially, right? Depends which of the air signs, okay? Because Gemini is more so like the day-to-day types of people, right? Everyday friends and gathering people. And again, they're the jack of all trades. They have all the friends. You know, they're friends with everybody. Gemini is friends with everybody. They're non-judgmental, okay? So Gemini, you'll see sometimes in like sales roles. You'll see them in PR, marketing, like these type of things. Social media sometimes. Even Libra can be social media, I find too, okay? Libra is kind of like the connector. So Libra you'll find in like parties, you know, like party planning, or like, you know, it could be fashion, yes, as you guys know, for Libra energy, but it's like anything where you're gathering people together, okay? That's Libra energy. So networking events for Gemini and Libra as well. Anything where you're gathering people, creating some sort of party or something of the sort, okay? Wedding planning, event planning, all these things. Libra especially, okay? PR for Libra too, sometimes social media for them as well. And then Aquarius is a little bit different because they're more so like the higher minded thinking. So Aquarius is going to be kind of like gathering people before some sort of common cause or larger purpose, okay? That's the Aquarius energy. That's kind of where Aquarius is different compared to the rest of the signs. So it's this. But yeah, Gemini also, like, because Mercury can rule cars. Gemini could be in, if you have, let's say, Gemini dominant energy, they can work with cars, or they can work in a job where they drive a car around, like a salesperson in this way, okay? Basically, you have to talk. Thank you. You said basically what you were saying, air is mutable. It's Gemini that's mutable, right? So all of the elements have mutable, then they have, like, every element has a mutable sign, a cardinal sign, and then a fixed sign, okay? So Gemini is mutable air. So they're gonna have the hardest time with the air energy because they're not rooted in anything, okay? Unless they have earth energy in there, they're gonna struggle, okay? They're gonna be here, they're gonna be there, they're gonna be everywhere, okay, Gemini? And non-committal. The air energy is also non-committal, so that could also be a struggle, okay, in general when they're picking what they want to do, especially for work, right? Gemini also, like, if they're able to hone the Gemini energy in, okay, then they can multitask. So it depends. Thank you, Suresh. You're so nice. What else? You said used car salesman, Gemini vibes. Yeah, they can definitely work with cars. You said, do I think that this realm that we're in may have demigods or powerful spirits? Yeah, there's everything down here. There is everything down here. There's a lot. There's a lot of entities down here because here's the thing. Well, this is something that I came to conclude. I don't know if this is true or not. So as you guys know, like in my own belief, I believe that Saturn operates everything down here, right? So Saturn is running the show. So you have the group Allegedly My Opinion that's worshiping Saturn and all of that. Then I was thinking in my head, and I was thinking about how they do all their rituals, Allegedly My Opinion, and I was thinking because, okay, part of the story is they can't manifest for themselves, so they kind of like do the rituals to pull in other entities or gods or whatever, spirits, whoever, okay? There's so many different like beings, right? So they kind of pull them through to assist them with manifesting certain things, right? So there's that category. But then I was thinking in my head, and I was thinking, and I'm like, what if also they're pulling through these spirits so they can help them like basically come out of the Saturnian structure, because we're all under the Saturnian structure. So are the people who are aware of what's going on down here, right? So we're all under Saturn. So I was thinking maybe some of the rituals that they do is so they can kind of create almost like this, like just psychically the way they see, almost like a hole or something on the sort to kind of come out of the Saturnian structure. So to answer your question, like in short, there's so many spirits down here and so many people do rituals, and you'd be surprised. Sometimes it's like the most regular looking person. I'm not gonna lie, like the first person I ever went to in this whole psychic world was actually a numerologer. So interesting that so many of you guys are asking about numerologers. This was a specific type of numerology that I've never really seen anybody do since then, okay? They basically like calculated so many things, and he was like writing so fast and like all these calculations. So he was doing a specific type of numerology, and it was so interesting to me because when I was going there, okay, and I was like 18 when this took place, okay? So in my mind, I'm thinking, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like just like kind of what you see in the movies. I'm like, oh, it's gonna look a certain type of way. It's gonna be super witchy or wizardy or whatever, right? There's gonna be like cats, and like it's gonna look like a dungeon, and what honestly it was like the most regular house. It was like the most regular. You would never, if you saw this person like walking around on the street, you would never know what they do, right? So with that being said, there's a lot of people who engage in a lot of these things, okay? Exactly, people. He says sometimes they're controlled, believe it or not. You said, I don't know if this is true or not. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You guys get it. You said these people, exactly, they sacrifice, exactly, in order to have the power. Exactly. DJ, you just know. You just get it. I mean, I'm not surprised. If you guys are on my channel, you guys understand, okay? You guys, like, we're on the same frequency. And for those of you who aren't there yet, it's somewhere in the back of your mind, okay? It'll come into fruition when the time comes, but it's there. You said, did I see that one of the famous singers from the 90s and 2000s had a weird facial glitch? Which one was this with the eye that wouldn't stay open? I know another one of them recently. Okay, Virgo. Let me tell you guys about Virgo. So one of you guys are asking about Virgo. Virgo, okay? So Virgo is mutable earth, but with Virgo, in my opinion, even though they're mutable earth, they're still the most fixed mutable sign. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Okay, but they're still mutable earth, okay? So they're mutable earth. So Virgo is like the researcher, right? So for them, they're perfecting a thought. So it depends how long they are perfecting the thoughts. That's where their mutability comes in, okay? Because sometimes them perfecting a thought and doing the research can be their whole lives, right? Like professors and doctors and so on and so forth, right? But as soon as they perfect it, as soon as they get to the bottom of it, then they move on. So that's where their mutable nature comes in, okay? But this is what I mean. Sometimes it takes a long time to research something, right? So they could be doing it their whole lives, right? So it's this. Virgo is also very much like about the routine, right? And having a routine. I've noticed with them, a lot of the time, the routine gives them a sense of control. With Virgo, I find a lot of the time, like their upbringing deals with some sort of like things spinning out of control. So then that's kind of how they find comfort in their routine, because it gives them a sense of control. They're also connected to the energy of enough. So it's like they kind of always feel like things aren't enough, I find, okay? Or not good enough, because Virgo bounces off of Pisces, but they're Earth, right? So I find that Virgo, they're all about perfectionism because they're kind of bouncing off of Pisces. They want this ideal scenario, or they want this ideal house, or whatever, ideal job, right? But I find that when they get it, then they kind of want the next thing. I've noticed with Virgo, right? So for example, you'll see Virgos, if they're in the shadow, that is, okay? Always renovating their house. For example, if it's in the Venus, they're always trying to fix their partner. If it's whatever, in the Jupiter, they're always trying to find that perfect job or whatever, right? So it depends. It depends what's going on. But that's what's going on with Virgo. They're meant to learn that perfection doesn't exist, okay? And this whole perfectionism thing comes from, again, early childhood. I'm not a psychologist, okay? Always my disclaimer, you guys know, but it always comes from childhood, right? Because usually they kind of get the attention from the parents by being the perfect student or whatever, like the applause or the accolades from the parents, right? The attention essentially, okay? From either being a perfect student or a perfect child or whatever, they, you know, make the sandwiches with the parents or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like for school and all these things. So they kind of learn how to get the attention throughout life by getting the achievements and the awards and being, you know, a good student and being, you know, a good employee and whatever. They're the most competent. But when Virgo wilds out, you guys, and they go into the opposite of the energy, then they go into Pisces, right? So that's how the oppositions work. So yes, Virgo can, you know, be the perfectionist. Everything can be clean and whatever, right? But, you know, when they're kind of like, you know, kind of going off the rocker, right? They start wilding out. They go into messy energy. Everything's messy. They're, you know, failing everything because they've been under this energy for too long. I hope that makes sense. Sometimes it doesn't happen for everybody. Obviously, I'm not speaking that into existence for people. That's just some cases. What I've noticed with Virgo, when they finally release control and they start wilding out, they go into their oppositional energy, which is Pisces, and they are scattered, okay? Energetically, but very rare will you see that with Virgo, because they're very good at keeping things under control. Or like whatever, let's say it's like they were a perfect student their whole life and then they fail that first test. Yeah, that's just going to be like, you know, what sets them off, okay? So it's this. Let's see. What else are you guys saying here? You said some movies to watch. Okay, let me screenshot that. Haven't watched any of those movies. You said Jupiter Ascending, They Live, Damsel, Doctor Strange, Endgame, Avengers, and then you said hint, Thanos is a really good guy. All the Matrix, they have to tell us. Yeah, it's in everything. It's absolutely in everything. You said this way of thinking is so much fun. Yay, I don't know what I was saying at that point, but I'm glad that resonated. You said, tell me about Scorpio. Oh my gosh, yes. That's probably what Concern was replying to you. Oh my gosh, do I have that many? Wow, okay. So I have a Scorpio playlist, and I have Scorpio 8 house playlist, and then I have Pisces 12 house playlist, okay? So check out those videos because I go off. I can talk about 4 days for Scorpio energy. You said Sagittarius Sun, Venus, and Scorpio man. Depends. Is he in his shadow version or is he in his divine version? Like what's going on? Because Sag wants freedom, okay? Sag wants freedom and they can be poly sometimes. But like when you have Scorpio with a Sag combination, I find those energies sometimes dangerous in my own opinion. Sag Scorpio combinations, if they're not integrated, sometimes they kind of give criminal energy, the Sag Scorpio energy to me, if they're not integrated, okay? They can be very like intuitive as well, the Sag Scorpio energy. They can be possessive. They can also kind of be the types that kind of have double standards if it's a man, okay? If he's a cis-het man, in my own opinion, okay? So for example, because the Venus is in Scorpio, he might want, like if he's into women, he might want the woman to be loyal, but then while he goes off and does what he wants with that Sagittarius energy wilding out in there. So it could be very much a double standard energy. Depends like what's going on and how integrated is this energy, okay? But he could be very possessive over his like partners, okay? Like because it's Venus. But at the same time, here's the thing, right? The Scorpio is intense. So it's like, it depends how integrated is this person in the Scorpio energy, okay? And yeah, that energy Sag Sun, Scorpio Venus, like it can very much go into like crime or gambling, get rich quick schemes, like trying to get all the money and all the gains, okay? Like they can be very, with Venus and Scorpio in there, if they're, again, cis-het into women, they can be very possessive over the women, so that they are involved with. I don't have any book recommendations. I do have book recommendations on theology, okay, if you're interested. It's on this channel. Under my book recommendations video, it's probably gonna be in the miscellaneous playlist. You said you wonder if Virgos, you said you wonder if Libras know how to cook. I wouldn't say that's Libra's domain. Cooking is like Taurus and Cancer. If they have Taurus, Cancer, and then maybe Libra in there, they can be kind of like aesthetic with the cooking, you know, or like making it look good. You're welcome. You said, you know, someone who has placement that would, you know, someone who has some placements that would definitely indicate they should be more spiritual or awakened, but they don't seem to be there yet. Are they meant to awaken in this life? Depends. There has to be a trigger point for someone to have a spiritual awakening, and there's nothing really that you could do, okay? So the trigger point has to be, it depends, right? Because for some people, like I mentioned earlier in this video, I have a video on the connection between cognitive dissonance, psychic gifts and abilities, spiritual awakening, and trauma, okay? So usually if someone experiences, let's say, a lot of trauma in the early part of their life, right? So it depends what the trauma is, because trauma is on a range. Sometimes it's just the feeling, right? So let's say someone lived in a lot of fear, okay? When they were younger, let's say the environment was fearful, okay? For example, then you're out of body, okay? So you go out of body to self-preserve. So you already see through the veil because you're already psychic. So there's that type of psychicness, right? And then already because you see through the veil, it's like you're always kind of spiritual. I hope that makes sense, right? Other people who are deeply ingrained in the matrix, okay, and super asleep, they have to have a trigger moment. And you can't really do anything to help them awaken until they have that trigger moment, which pushes them out of body through, again, the cognitive dissonance to have the spiritual awakening, right? So usually the trigger moment is like when some sort of illusion gets broken for you, okay? Whether, you know, the external reality, where the external reality isn't matching your internal reality, right? So for a lot of people, for example, when we had 2020 take place, that caused a lot of spiritual awakenings because people were like, hey, what's going on here, right? So it could be that. For some people, it could be loss in their life, loss of someone. It could be a betrayal, for example. It could be, you know, some sort of hardship that they go through, okay? So if it's later on in life, if it's someone who's like deeply ingrained, and then you have other people who just don't awaken in this lifetime, okay? Sometimes people have too big of an ego that if they go through the shattering of the ego, they can potentially actually go into psychosis, okay? So sometimes it's not for everybody, right? To go through the spiritual journey, because again, what I was mentioning to you guys earlier in this video as well is when someone is very much in their ego, okay, they built a lot of their identity through the things that are external to them. I really, really hope that that makes sense. So it's like, you know, the labels, the titles, the status, okay, whether it's on a relationship, whether it's having a certain relationship status, whether it is having certain status in their life, whether it's having a certain job, whether it's having a certain title, okay, doctor, you know, lawyer, whatever, okay? So it's like if you create a lot of your identity through these external things, the ego is fragile, right? Because as soon as those things are gone, you don't know who you are. That's why you have to learn who you are deep down inside, okay? So sometimes when people have too much of an ego, and this is anybody in the world, right? If they go through a spiritual awakening or cognitive dissonance moment, they can't handle it, right? Because you have to be mentally strong, and a lot of people aren't, especially if a lot of the ego is created on external things. That's why sometimes when people try to do, let's say, plant medicine, they don't go anywhere because of the fact, and that's for their own protection, okay? Because they have too big of an ego, okay? And if that ego gets shattered, that's how you go into psychosis, because it's like, it's too much, right? I really, really hope that that makes sense. Sending you guys love as well. I hope you guys are doing well. What else are you guys saying in here? You said unless you walk into the room and you're uber plutonic, that will, yeah, that'll trigger people as well. It depends. You said stop. You're directly talking to me. Sometimes it feels like I already know you. You're starting to look for cameras. It's because I hook into your guys' consciousness. Okay, it's like the group's consciousness. Whoever is gonna watch this video, it's like the information's for those people, right? There's a reason that you're drawn to it. Okay, different people are gonna assist you at different times in your journey. You said you watched the video about reincarnation. You keep coming back to it until you live. You said you keep coming back until you live up to the contract / draconians. Use the moon / Saturn to trap souls. Exactly. And Earth equals HELL. That's the thing. That's the thing. And in a nutshell, it's this, right? Sometimes I don't want to give people a negative perception, but that's what's happening down here. Okay. We're energetically restricted by Saturn. That's literally what is happening down here. So you have to learn how to break free from Saturn. And that's something that is taken out of a lot of the scriptures, or hidden information that's hidden in terms of how to exit this realm. So all we can really do is just talk about it and figure it out on our own. That's why I have that video where I talked about how to not reincarnate again. Okay, because first you have to see through the illusion, because that's why they call it Maya, right? Because everything is an illusion down here. You have to see that a lot of things down here are kind of like a carrot and a stick. You know, when they put the carrot on the stick for the horse to keep walking? That's kind of what they put people into, this cycle. And then when the end of the life comes, maybe the person hasn't achieved what they wanted to achieve or thought they wanted to achieve, right? And then boom, you get looped into reincarnating again. That's one of the things. Another one of the things is literally everything that I'm talking about today of not being in tune with the true soul self, right? Because again, most people are the ego, okay? They are the shell of the individual that's on the outside. And here is the thing. It's not that anything is good or bad. I don't really see it that way. It doesn't mean an ego is bad. It's a survival mechanism thing, okay? It's a protection mechanism that people develop to protect the self, right? From, again, so many things when you were younger, not being accepted, you know, just like not being able to be your true self. It's usually connected to that, I find, not fully being able to be your true self, okay? And your authentic self. So then people are fragmented, right? And there's that whole part of the story where people are fragmented, so they have like different personalities coming out to you. There's just so much to say, basically. But yes, it's Moon and Saturn. I'm so glad that you know, because that's actually what's going on. And a lot of people like worship the moon, and that's what's annoying, because it's like you're giving the moon power, but the moon is part of this whole loop, energetically, allegedly, in my own opinion, okay? So it's this. Thank you. You guys are awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Cultivations. You said it's interesting that both your wife and you always thought that you were new souls, but both your charts indicate old souls. You wonder if a lot of old souls, yeah, they do. A lot of old souls have that perception, because it's like, you've been here so many times. Do you know what I mean? And you'll see that. That's why a lot of the time I find 12th house people to be older souls, for example, or if you have 12th house placements in there, anything honestly from Scorpio onwards, even, you're able to see through the veil too, okay? You just kind of sense that something is off. I just always sense that everything, like when I was young, to me, everything felt very disconnected until CV in 2020 happened. That's kind of like when everyone kind of got plugged in energetically, like almost into this like energy where like it united people energetically in a strange way. I can't explain it any other way, but up until then, everything was very like spread out energetically in terms of the people. So that's really interesting. You said having lived a life with trauma bonding since childhood till date, you would agree that the subconscious is continuously active 9 times out of 10. Exactly. And then on top of that, your date of birth is 7. There you go. So you're basically meant to pave your own path and do your own thing in this lifetime with that 7 energy. Like, it's like the 7 energy to me in numerology feels like Aquarius, okay? So it's someone who is out of this world or doesn't feel like they're part of this world. Like they're part of the world, but they don't feel like they're out of this world, okay? When you have 7, it's a spiritual lifetime. It's kind of a loner lifetime. It's kind of like Aquarius. That's how it feels to me. Okay, let me see. You said live what you love. Exactly. That's my mantra, to be honest, you guys. That's kind of like my philosophy right now, is just to like do things that I love and have fun. Literally, like what else can you do down here, okay? It's like dusty and they're gonna keep doing what they're doing, right? So the best thing to do is not pay attention to them and their antics, and literally have fun, right? And enjoy your life. And that's what they don't like. They don't like when you're not paying attention to them. It's like narcissism. That's what a narcissist is. A narcissist is like an empty vessel that wants you to constantly pay attention to them, kind of like a baby that wants attention all the time, right? And that's the whole system energetically, in my own opinion, allegedly. It's narcissistic, right? It trickles from the top down. So what's like the worst thing for a narcissist? Not giving them any attention. So that's the way that I see things. I'm not giving them any attention, and whatever it is that they do, I go off and I do my own thing, and they don't want you to be, you know, happy and have fun and laugh and joke around. Like I notice that with people too sometimes, when I'm just like out and about and I make a joke and they're just like this, and I'm like, are you good? Like, what's going on? Okay, let me tell you guys a story. So I went to go get my nails done for Valentine's, like February, like Valentine's Day, okay? And I did like hearts on my nails. And at the nail salon, the lady was like, oh, not a lot of people are doing their nails this year or whatever, like Valentine's Day nails. And then I said to her, and I was like, oh, like a lot of people must like hate their partners or something like that. Or a lot of people must just like hate Valentine's Day. So I said something like that, okay? So anyways, whatever, we laughed about it, we joked around. And then when I went to another store, another girl like talked about my nails, and I said the same thing to that girl. And I was like, oh my gosh, like somebody told me that a lot of people aren't getting their nails done. And I was like, everybody must hate each other or whatever. It was just like literally blank face. And I'm like, are you good? Like, what's happening? I'm like, it's like someone's like glitching right in front of me. You said, is joking around to protect his feelings that makes you destructive? Depends. Depends. Sometimes people use it as a defense mechanism. Let's see. Depends on the person. You said you're Capricorn male, 25, born on January 1st. Oh my gosh, the first day of the year, or like the calendar year. Hustler, here to, you know, make money, hustle, get the gains, get the wealth with the Capricorn and January 1st. Like that's like literally an entrepreneurial type of energy, okay? So that's probably the direction you want to go in. Hey, preppy queen. How are you doing? You said Aquarius men should learn emotional regulation skills instead of being a narcissist who wants attention all the time. All cishet men should learn emotional regulation skills, most of them. Okay, obviously some of them are awakened and they're working and healing themselves, but a lot of them need to work on that aspect of the self. You said, do I think Pluto and Aquarius trine other signs means more gathering and parties? You said Pluto and Aquarius trine the air signs means more gathering. The Pluto and Aquarius, I mean, maybe. You mean the transit or in your own natal chart? I'm just going back up to see what I may have missed up here. You said you were telling your sister about, I don't know who that is, being stuck in three-way situations. Oh, Libras, being stuck in three-way situations. Her granddaughter was in a three-way friendship where one of the children wanted to be referred. Yeah, exactly. That's what happens with Libras. They end up in third-party situations. With three people, it doesn't just have to be third-party like lovers. It can just be with another person. Like, there's always like, it's always like groups of three where the Libra person's in the middle, like balancing the two people, okay? And that's connected to the parents usually, because you were like trying to balance them when you were a kid. You said Pluto, Uranus. Yeah, exactly. In ancient astrology, they didn't consider the external planets. Absolutely not. Exactly. Yeah, I'm just reading what you guys were saying up here. Yeah, don't tell people your plans. You said you're having a hard time finding career, like you have 10th house in Capricorn. For career in a natal chart, I look at, okay, so the 10th house, like the midheaven's the vibe of the career, okay? It doesn't have to be the exact career, okay? So your vibe is gonna be Capricorn, but for career, you can look at a few things, right? You can look at the second house to see how you're gonna make money. You can look and see if you have stelliums in there. Like there's a lot of things that you can look for career, right? So I have to look at your chart to see, like for a few options, I guess. You said you've noticed since you stopped posting on Facebook, life is smoother. Exactly. Then you said less hiccups. Oh yeah, that's going back to what I was saying about posting online. That's another thing too with like the dating apps. What people don't realize is every time someone looks at your picture, they're connecting their energy to you. And especially if it's on a dating app, they're connecting their sexual energy to you. So then they're pulling you down energetically, okay? Into the sacral, into their sacral. So there's that. It kind of creates like an energetic fog. If you're not spiritually like strengthened, and for you to be spiritually strengthened, you have to raise your vibration. It's kind of what it all comes down to. You said, how do I feel about being powerful enough to ascend beyond such influence from others? You have to not care and you have to listen to your heart ultimately, okay? It's a very good question. You have to listen to what the soul wants you to do, okay? And you have to not be afraid to be in your truth, right? So for people, most people when they're younger, a lot of that comes from, let's say, it depends on the upbringing, but for most people, it's like sometimes they fear the parents, or like, let's say what the parents want for you, like, because they're usually your original authority, right? And then later on, it perpetuates throughout your life because then it's going to be your partner, or it'll be your friends, it'll be your teachers, it'll be your managers, it'll be society as at large, okay? So it's like, you guys have to understand that like one of the biggest human wounds, or just like desires or whatever way, shape, or form you guys want to look at it, is, you know, the desire to be accepted, right? So everyone wants to be accepted. But the thing is like, you know, there's no point in not being your true self, because then this is also where like a lot of loneliness, in my opinion, comes from for people in general in the world, is from not being their true selves, because then they're not authentically connecting with people. They're kind of putting on this personality that they think the other person is going to like, right? And then you feel empty or you feel lonely, okay? And you feel disconnected. That's the way that I see loneliness. It's not really being alone. It's the inability to connect to people, okay? That's where the loneliness comes from. But you can't connect to people if you're putting on a fake personality or something that you think another person's gonna like, right? And again, you guys have to understand that everything comes back down to survival and survival mechanisms, right? A lot of people do these things out of survival. Like it's literally connected to this, and then it's connected to the fear of death, right? Being abandoned by the group or ostracized from the community. Like that goes way, way back. It's like a human wound or like an ancestral wound, like whatever way, shape, or form you guys want to look at it, right? Because like way back in the day, what they used to do is like a punishment to people. They would kind of put the person in the middle and everybody would laugh at them, right? Or like humiliate them, right? And these humiliation things. So you have to overcome that internally, okay? And then you won't be influenced by others and their opinions. And that's kind of how you come into your own energetic sovereignty. And the only way to do it is to put yourself in that exact same situation, okay? Exactly. You can have the biggest circle of friends and still feel alone. Absolutely. It's not the quantity. That's what people don't understand. It's not the quantity, okay? You know, and you can even have good people around you, but if you're not your true self and you're not able to fully be who you are deep down inside and share your own thoughts and your own opinions and be accepted for that, then you're still going to feel disconnected. You could feel alone in anything, in a relationship, in a friendship, at work, everywhere, okay? You said, can I say, surprisingly, I actually don't have any books about astrology. You said, can I suggest a book where you can learn more about astrology? You printed out your birth chart and you only know the basics. I can't suggest the book. I actually don't have one. I'm sure, honestly, you can find any book online where you want to learn more about astrology. Like, I'm sure everything, if it's just basics, every book will have the information that you need. But I don't have one where I'm like, this is like the best book for this, okay? You said you'll never go on a dating app. I don't think anyone should be on the dating apps, in my own opinion. You guys can do what you want. Obviously, everyone has the free will to do what they want, but I think the dating apps have completely inverted the whole attraction game, okay? And it's kind of locked everybody in their houses and made everybody lazy. It has made everybody like passive. You know what's so wild? I just met someone recently, okay? Through another person. I met this person and this person was like, oh, like how they go on dating apps and how they're like, how do you meet someone in real life? And I'm like, you just have to go to certain events or, you know, do things that you like to do or just be out and about, like just be out of your house. You'll meet someone. And they're like, oh, I don't want a random person coming up to me. And I'm like, well, you need to have like discernment when someone comes up to you, like what's going on with their vibe. Like, what's the difference between a random person coming up to you and you meeting a stranger that you met online? Like, it's the same thing, essentially, right? Like, you need to have intuition to, like, be able to read the person. I was just like, what is going on? Like, we are just, it's very interesting what's going on with society. Like, it's nice because it's, like, online you can connect with people who are like-minded, but then at the same time, it's isolating people even more, and then it's making people also socially awkward, in my own opinion, allegedly, okay? So it's this. You say you stay away from all social media, and you're right, meeting people in person. Yeah, exactly. It's the go-getter energy. Exactly. Meeting people in person because you can get a sense for their vibe, right? Right away. Versus online and all these things. Especially if you're looking at online dating, some people then like stay on the apps and they just like chat all day, and then that's a pen pal. You know what I mean? And who has time for that? Hey, Los El Mexicano, how are you doing? You said in the Placidus system, what is the difference between 29 degrees in whole sign and early degrees at the end of the house? What do you mean? What's the difference between 20? Oh, okay. So when it's at 29 degrees in whole sign and then it goes into the next house in the other system, or in the Placidus system, it's at 29 and then it goes into the other house in whole sign. I look at Placidus because to me, the whole signs, I know a lot of people look at whole sign, but it's just like, to me, it's more, I don't know how to explain it. It's more masculine, if that makes sense. Like someone came along and they're like, okay, let's make all the houses even now and not make them like not even, right? So it's just like, it's a different, I guess it's a different approach. As long as they're able to get to the same conclusions, you know, it doesn't really matter which system you use, but I use Placidus Tropical. So you said that's a very deep, intrinsically taught. Pluto and Scorpio, yes, old soul into the occult. Yeah, that's the whole like millennial generation. The millennials have a lot, like, which is Pluto and Scorpio. They have a lot, like they have like a large task at hand, but a lot of them I find have just kind of gone into addictions, unfortunately. So they have to kind of pull themselves out of that, because a lot of Pluto and Scorpios are actually meant to be healers, and they're meant to transmute things for the whole family line. Like if you look at it astrologically, like that's what they're meant to be doing, okay? Clearing, transmuting, purging. That's why they're old souls, okay? Because the old souls came through and they're purging all these things. And you'll notice a lot of Pluto and Scorpio within the generation don't have kids because they already have a large energetic task to purge for the whole family line, okay? Obviously not everyone, right? But a lot of them. But I've noticed a lot of them who are in avoidance of the path or just like overwhelmed energetically by everything, they kind of went into addiction, right? Because that's also Scorpio. That's the shadow of Pluto and Scorpio. So they have to kind of overcome that, okay? Good, you got rid of all your addictions. Good. Usually addictions, you guys, are connected to some sort of feeling that you're trying to avoid feeling, right? So you have to get in tune with your feelings and your emotions to see what are you masking with the addiction, okay? Is it anxiety? Is it, you know, fear of being alone? Is it, everything comes back down to the fear of death ultimately, okay? Fear of not being accepted, all these things, okay? Fear of abandonment. It's all connected to the fear of death ultimately, okay? Hey, John, how are you doing? You said you have Scorpio, Moon, Trine, Pluto. That's why you're wise. It's the Scorpio, Moon, Trine, Pluto. You said the weight of being a family healer is enormous and exhausting. It is. That's why you still have to have fun, okay? Because you have to go purge out the energy, right? So it's like it comes through your vessel, but you have to find a way to purge it, right? So going to the gym, having fun, dancing, being with your friends, like all these things, right? I hope you're well too, John. You said, can I offer any insight on the upcoming solar eclipse? Oh, it's on the 29th as well. And then you said, which is occurring on the exact day and the degree of your own natal sun in the 5th house. Okay, so it's going to be in, let me think, it's going to be in Pisces, I believe. I don't really follow the transits. Like I know it's eclipse season, but let me know if you guys can confirm. I'm trying to think because the last one that we just had was in Virgo, I believe, and that was the full moon. The new moon should be in Pisces. Yeah, so you guys want to see where do you guys have Pisces in your chart, okay? So for you, in your case, you have it in the 5th house. So something's going to come to the surface for you because that's what an eclipse is, okay? It brings it to the surface for you to cleanse and clear the energy. So the 5th house, okay, is going to be, if you have Pisces in the 5th house, that is going to be anything with love, dating, and relationships, your inner child healing, maybe something to do with like creativity as well. Like putting you on the path of creativity, perhaps. Oh yeah, we're in Aries, see? This is what I mean. I literally do not follow any of these things. Okay, so in that case, it's Aries, okay? Still, same thing, okay? It's still going through your 5th house, right? So everything that I just said is still gonna apply, right? It's an eclipse that's going through your 5th house, okay? In that particular case. So it's like you're cleansing or anything's coming to the surface where you love dating and relationships, you know, and it's retrograde too, right? So it's this. Okay, can you guys confirm, because you guys are saying different things in the chat, is the eclipse, I'm trying to think now, the eclipse is in Aries, right? Because we just had the full moon in Virgo, and that was the other eclipse. So please confirm, you guys, if you guys know, if the eclipse is now in Aries, the next one that's coming up. You said, what happens when Jupiter in Cancer? It's, okay, one of you guys saying Pisces, some of you guys are saying Aries. Okay, I'm just going to check after, regardless. I don't look at transits, you guys, as you guys can tell, okay? I'm just like oblivious to them, but whatever sign that it's in, okay, whether it's in Pisces or in Aries, doesn't matter. Check, okay, if it is in Pisces, check where you guys have Pisces, what house is Pisces in your chart. That's the house that the eclipse is going to illuminate, okay? If it's in Aries, check what house you guys have Aries in your chart, and that's the house that the eclipse is going to illuminate, okay? So that's how you guys can do any transit for yourselves. See what sign is it in and what house you guys have that sign in, okay? And then it's going to basically eclipse, like bring something, okay, to the surface for you for that particular thing, okay? Okay, so one of you guys is saying new moon. It's a new moon on the 29th in Aries, and it's on the 29th too. That's gonna be intense. Pisces, 29 degrees. Okay, see, you guys are still saying, it's fine. Honestly, it's fine. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, just see, if you guys just Google it, see what sign it's in and see what house you guys have that sign in, okay? That's the house that's going to be affected, basically, okay? You said it's actually easier than you thought. Just being yourself. You want to go out more and dance and do random activities. Good in terms of clearing. You said April 10th will be 1 year since you smoked. Congratulations. And 1 year since, and 1 year and 6 months since you drank. Congratulations. Yeah, that's another thing too, okay? Because I noticed the Pluto and Scorpio, which is the millennials, they had like a huge party phase. I mean, I am Pluto and Scorpio as well, so I know all about that life, okay? But they're meant to purge all this energy as well, okay? Out of their system, okay, all of this, because you'll see like the recent generations now, they don't drink alcohol as much anymore, or do really any substances. I like that too, what you said. Don't count the days, just do it. Yeah, for people who are trying to like recover from addictions. Yeah, I noticed for some people who count the days, it's like, it's almost like they're doing it to like achieve a milestone, if that makes sense. And that kind of takes away from it energetically. But honestly, whatever works for you guys. You said your birthday was, oh, happy birthday, DJ, or belated birthday. Hold on, let me think. What day are we on? I think it's the 24th today. I think we're on the 24th, so we passed your birthday, but happy belated birthday. What did you do? Exactly, and back to like Pluto and Scorpio being into the occult, you'll see that that's why astrology blew up, okay, with Pluto and Scorpio and Pluto and Sag, okay, these generations and onwards, right, because those are all the spiritual signs. You said we should feel ourselves with energy every day. Exactly, you should. Everybody should get in tune. The only way you can feel the energy is when you're in tune with your own energy in like within, right? So you can only get in tune with your own energy when you clear, okay, and take other people's energy off of you. You said one of the obstacles for society is the outdated education system. Absolutely, okay, but it's also like indoctrination, allegedly, in my own opinion. Like that's all done by design to kind of like dumb people down, in my own opinion, allegedly. They don't teach people anything that actually is going to assist them. Do you know what I mean? You said, how did that experience, with the numerologer? Oh no, that was really good. Okay, so I was 18 when I went to that numerologer. We're going way back. Okay, so if you guys are just joining it live, I told a story about a numerologer that I went to when I was 18 years old. No, this person was normal. They were like the most normal everyday person. That's what I was trying to get at with that story, because you will never expect some people who do like witchcraft out in the streets, right? And they look like the most normal person, right? Not saying that numerology is witchcraft, but I'm just saying like people do all kinds of things. Okay, that's where I was getting at with that story. But anyway, so yeah, that was one of my first experiences with like a numerologer psychic type of person, and it was really good because that's where I found out about empaths actually. Okay, because he told me that I absorb a lot of energy, and he didn't use the term empath, okay, because this was like in my country, okay, and like different language, right? But still, he uses his own terminology, and that's how I found out about like absorbing energy and empaths and all these things. And then I don't know how I found about like the word empath, because back then there was like one Facebook page that I followed, okay, it was called Spirit Science, and that's where I got all of my like spiritual information from. There was literally only one page, okay, back then, and now it's everywhere, which is awesome to see like how much times have changed. You said, do affirmations help us, or you said, do affirmations help our astrological patterns to break negative cycles? You had studied some person's affirmations in her book, which claim to heal. Okay, here's the thing. This is the way that I see it, okay? You have to look at your chart to see what is energetically holding you back in this life, okay? So you have to start there, because your chart is going to tell you what are your soft spots, your weaknesses, your wounds, like all these things, okay? So that's what your chart will tell you. That's why you want to transcend it. Yes, affirmations can help, but the thing is you guys have to change internally. Like the affirmation to me sometimes is kind of like a band-aid solution, unless you actually truly believe it and you actually like truly change that pattern within. Does that make sense? So the only way you can change the pattern is when you're faced with that exact same situation. So okay, let me give you guys an example, okay? Let's say you come from an upbringing or a home or a family where everybody had scarcity when it came to money, okay? Everybody has scarcity when it came to money, and you know, now you're just like in that mindset. Even maybe if your circumstance isn't how theirs was, maybe you have a stable job, like let's say you have a wonderful income coming in, but you still have the scarcity mindset, okay? So you'll see sometimes when people operate out of scarcity, like sometimes they're always trying to get like, you know, a discount, or they're always trying to get something like for cheaper. Or for example, okay, let me give you guys an example. Let's say you're traveling, okay? Traveling is on my mind always. Let's say you're traveling. Let's say it's more expensive for you to fly to the place, or so hold on, yeah, more expensive for you to fly, but you're gonna save the time, okay? But then you'll find a cheaper ticket. And let's say in this situation, you don't need to budget, okay? It's a different story if you need to budget. I'm kind of trying to give you guys the example of scarcity, how it can like still trickle through even though it doesn't need to, okay? So, and like, it's like ingrained, right? Because again, it's passed down. It could be like generational, for example, right? So again, you have the steady job, you have a wonderful income, you can definitely afford all of these things, but you're still in the scarcity mindset, okay? So that's the storyline here. Let's say you're going traveling, you find a plane ticket, the plane will get you there faster, okay? Let's say you'll get there in 1 hour with the plane, and let's say the plane ticket is more expensive, and then you find a bus, and with the bus to get to the same place, it will, let's say, take you 12 hours, but the bus is really cheap. Now, obviously, different people have different priorities at the end of the day, but let's say in the story now, you know, the universe is testing you to see like where are you at in terms of your abundance mindset versus your scarcity mindset. If you're still in the scarcity mindset, regardless of how much money you are making and how much income you have, you might take the route of trying to save money, right? Even if you don't need to in this particular story, right? So it's like, that's why you have to, in that moment when you're faced with the decision, be kind of like, okay, well, if I take the 12-hour bus, you know, it's going to take so much time, it's going to be so tiring, you're going to have to sit the entire time in the bus, it's going to be physically exhausting, and whatever, it'll waste all this time and it'll be exhausting, let's say, okay? Whereas let's say you did the plane situation, you'll get there faster and you'll have more time and you won't be as tired, just like random, right? So some people who are in the scarcity mindset are still going to take the cheaper option, okay, even if they don't need to. So this is what I mean, okay? You have to change the way that you basically like look at things, right? In that moment when that situation comes up, okay? Another example of this, let's say, okay, you have an abandonment wound, which is very common within humans, right? And, you know, within this abandonment wound that you have, you know, you always want to know, let's say, where your partner is, okay? And let's say typically your pattern is if the partner isn't responding to you, you blow up their phone, okay? And now you call them 500 times, but let's say your partner was at a gym class or they were busy or whatever, right? Now, let's say you do this every time, you're not healing the wound, right? But you have to, you know, in that moment when you feel the urge to go into the wounded reaction, you have to hold back. This is how you heal, okay? You have to hold back, not react, see that the person will come back to you. Let's say it's the abandonment wound, and that's how you start to heal, okay? Because you're like, okay, you know, I'm rewiring my brain that, okay, I don't have to have this reaction every time I get the feeling that this person is missing somewhere, okay? Not responding or whatever, okay? However, like the logical mind will frame it, right? So that's the only way you can change, right? Like the affirmations can help, like in terms of maybe like, you know, your perception of the self and all these things, but it's really when you're faced with that moment, you have to have a different reaction. That's the way that I see it, okay? It's basically what it is. Thank you, Michael. You said, how can you use, yeah, Scorpio possessiveness. That's exactly what it is. That's the Scorpio possessiveness. Scorpio possessiveness is very intense. You said, what happens if you don't fulfill your North Node purpose? You reincarnate again. That's the way that I see it, at least. Maybe other people are going to have a different like perspective. Some people don't mind reincarnating again, but that's the way that I see it. You want to complete it so you can exit this realm, essentially. You said, how can you use Jupiter in Scorpio to make you successful? Oh, that's a good question. I mean, probably using occult knowledge and energy work and energy tactics, as long as you're not interfering with another person's free will, okay? That's the kicker. That's the catch in this whole story, okay? When you're working with energy and doing energy things, okay? You want to not go outside of you, right? So earlier, one of you guys talked about like deities, and in general, some of you guys talked about spirits. If you are going outside of you to ask a spirit to help you with something, that spirit is going to come back to collect. You guys have to understand this, okay? All the spirits will come back to collect, and most of the time, those spirits come back and they collect by creating chaos in your life, okay? So that's why it's like danger zone. I'm not trying to put fear out there. This is just what happens metaphysically. If you're going outside of yourself, asking some sort of being or entity to assist you with something, they might help you for a period of time, but they will come back to collect, okay? That's important to understand. So this is what's important about the whole occult world and understanding how occult works, right? And all these things. You want to use your own energy, okay, to elevate your own frequency and expand your aura outwards, okay, by healing and clearing. And it's really connected to the heart chakra, okay, and closing your aura so you go outwards, so you're naturally abundant. So you're pulling things towards you because of your own energy. That's the way that I see it, right? So that's, I think, where a lot of occult people go wrong, okay? In my opinion, now different people are going to have different opinions. Hey, I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. You said, interesting, since Taurus is also possessive. Exactly, Taurus is definitely very possessive. You said the full axis about possession. Scorpio is about others' resources. Taurus is about their own resources. I find, okay, this is how I see Scorpio and Taurus possessive energy, like the difference between the two, okay? So the difference between Scorpio and Taurus possessive energy and how they can be possessive. With Taurus, I find that Taurus is possessive because they actually look at people as objects, okay? Like it's something that they've acquired, okay? And it's not like an objectification thing. I know people talk about objectifying people and all these things. It's not like you're objectifying the person. It's just they literally look at people as property, okay? Essentially, that's the Taurus energy, right? It's mine, okay? That's how Taurus can become possessive, especially if they worked hard for it. Because if you think about it, like sometimes when someone is possessive over something, let's say they worked hard to get a car or whatever, they're like, that is mine, right? That's that possessive energy. That's something that they're meant to transmute and heal, actually, okay? The Scorpio possessiveness, I find, because Scorpio is more so in the healing energy and they more so merge, I find that Scorpio's possessiveness is like they kind of feel like when they merge to a person, they're investing a lot of their own energy into that individual to clear them energetically, and that's where their possessiveness comes from. So with Scorpio, they actually start to see the person as an extension of them. Okay, and it's too much sometimes with Scorpio energy as well. So that's the difference between the two possessive energies, the way that I see it at least, okay? Scorpio starts to merge, they see the person as an extension of themselves, okay? And it's like they are not able to differentiate, for example, okay, between them and the other person, but also because they're energetically working on the person too sometimes, okay? This is happening energetically behind the scenes. It's like for that reason, it's kind of like they're investing a lot, right? They really invest a lot. Okay, let's say it's a person or a relationship, right? Versus Taurus, it's like literally they look at people like possessions, okay, like an item. That's the way that I see it. You said most Taurus people are really chill. They are. You said that makes so much sense. It does. I'm glad that resonated. Let's see. You said Scorpio is deep bonding. Exactly. And it's obsessive. They're literally like Scorpio. Okay. So here's the thing. You guys have to understand, okay? Scorpio, right? So the 7th house of Scorpio energy is Taurus. So that's where the possessiveness, first of all, comes from. And then the 12th house of Scorpio is Libra, okay, which is partnership. So the soul of Scorpio is actually looking for partnership, right? And Scorpio is not able to, unless you train yourself. This is what I mean by transcending your natal chart. You can train yourself to not be like this. You just have to have the awareness, right? But Scorpio, when they find someone that they like, okay, or that they vibe with or whatever, they are not investing their full self into that person, okay? Now you guys can think about whether this is a positive thing or a negative thing or whatever, right? Doesn't matter, okay? It's just like by, putting all of their energy into this one person, it's like a lot is on the line, right? So then they don't want to let that person go, okay? Because they invested a lot, whether it's emotional energy, whatever, okay? So that's why they become obsessive too sometimes. So they can be intense. Because it's merging. The energy merges. It's an energy that merges to people. And like when you merge to someone as a scorpionic energy, you are now merging to everything, right? Even if they have shadow traits, you take them on as if they're your own. So you're going to have to learn how to differentiate, okay? Some of you guys are funny in the chat. You said depends on where the ruler planet in the house is. Yeah, it's just different types of investment essentially, okay? But Scorpios have to learn to give people space is really what that is, okay? Because Scorpio can be too much when they are in the shadow of the energy. Because the thing is with Scorpio, what I've noticed with them is, especially when they're younger or more underdeveloped or just like, again, unaware, what happens with them is like they don't connect with a lot of people. And when they find one person that they connect with, because Scorpio is looking for mind, body, spirit connection, they put everything into that person, right? And then it feels like, and that's also where their fear of abandonment comes from, because it took so long to find this individual, right? So if you are out there more as a Scorpionic individual and talking to people more and connecting with more people, like the more people that you know, you'll have more of these individuals in your life. So it doesn't just be one person or one friend. It doesn't just have to be romantic. It can be a friend too with Scorpio energy, right? Where they put everything in that person, right? And then the lines get blurred. That's why Scorpio deals with boundaries, because Scorpio can either struggle with boundaries or they can have very strong, firm boundaries and teach people boundaries as well, right? So it's energetic because they're merging, okay? That's just the nature of the energy, okay? Scorpio moon, yeah, it's in your emotional world. If it's your Scorpio moon, yeah, absolutely, because it's in your emotional world. So when you emotionally connect with someone, first of all, for a Scorpio moon to even emotionally connect with a person, to allow them into your internal world, you're going to take that person through like so much, okay? Because it's war, right? So for the person to actually get close to the Scorpio moon, like the other person who's trying to get in there is going to go through a lot of trials and tribulations, because Scorpio is unconsciously testing people all the time. Because Scorpio is always kind of like, are you worthy of being in my circle? Okay. That's just how it is. That's just how the energy is. They're doing this unconsciously. Okay. Which personally, most people like, I think would be in happier relationships if they did all of this testing. Oh, good. You said you love the fast speech. No, my Mercury is in Libra. Yeah, because it's like they know what it's like to be burned, right? So they're going to make the person, it depends where you have Scorpio in your chart, okay? But yeah, they're going to go there. It's like unconscious most of the time, the tests they're putting the other person through. It takes a long time because with Scorpio, like Scorpio can have a lot of friends, okay? Because like they can get along with a lot of people, right? Because Scorpios meet people where they are at. So you're going to have a lot of friends, but not everyone is in the inner circle, okay? So that's the thing with Scorpio. That's the difference. Is like you can have friends or you can have a lot of friends, but not everyone makes it into the inner circle. And sometimes even in the inner circle, they're not fully in. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's just like one person, okay? That's really in there. But even that, because Scorpio is always changing, right? So it's like no one's ever fully in there. And I think that's what the hook is with the Scorpionic energy for other people towards Scorpios, okay? Because they're always changing, right? So it keeps things fun and interesting. So ascendant, ego, moon is emotions. Exactly. Rising is how we represent the signs, energy at the time. Rising is also the direction that you're heading in. You said, yeah, I'm glad that resonated. You said Cancer, Sun, Scorpio, Moon. You're very protective of all your surroundings, especially with that Cancer, Sun. Cancer is like, here's the thing. Cancer energy is, oh my gosh. You're so funny. He said Scorpio moon is Cancer moon with a G-U-N. I'm not going to say that word because I don't know if I can say it on here, but that's hilarious. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. How would you make a Scorpio understand to not be so obsessed? Okay, so this is the thing with obsession. I said this in the previous live before I switched over to this one, but I privated that one anyway, so you guys aren't going to be able to see it because anyways, it was just like 15, 20 minutes. But what I was saying over there was when you're obsessed with someone, if it's a person that you're obsessed with, it's usually because they might have a trait that you like, okay? That's even what attraction is in my opinion, okay? They have a trait that you like, so you want to see how can you embody that trait within you, okay? That's really what it is, okay? Because obsession is you giving your power away to another person, but you have to see like what is it about this person that they have that you want is really what it is, okay? Because obsession is intense, okay? So after you can kind of create that for yourself, you're not going to be obsessed with that person anymore because you're pulling the energy back to you, okay? When you're putting on another person, you're giving your power away to the other person, okay? So you want to pull it back in. And then you want to take the obsession energy and put it on a goal that's going to benefit you, okay? And help you build your solar plexus and your trust in the self and all these things, okay? A healthy ego, essentially, is really, really what that is. Yeah, that was hilarious about the moon. You guys are so funny. But yeah, Cancer has the shell, right? So Cancer also is very cautious, especially if you have Cancer moon. They're also very cautious about who they let into their internal world, right? Because Cancer is like, it's the crab, but they also have the little house, right? So they can like withdraw. Like Cancer, it could take a while for you to pull the Cancer energy out of the person too, right? So it depends. It depends. Oh yes, so the rising sign, that's what I was saying earlier too. So the rising is where you're heading in this lifetime, okay? The direction that you are heading in this lifetime, essentially. You said, do Scorpios and Capricorns tend to attract each other? Well, they're sextiles. They get along, Scorpio and Capricorn, unless, hey, Rico, how are you doing? You said, is a Scorpio woman and a Taurus man a good fit? It's hard to say. I think it depends where you have Taurus in your chart, because I've heard some Scorpios say that they don't get along with Taurus energy because I guess it's oppositional, but I think it depends what house you have Taurus in your chart, and then you'll know, okay, like what house the Taurus energy person falls into. Do you know what I mean? You said Scorpio souls have experienced abandonment and betrayal, has been to hell, and their emotions are so deep, so they protect their own emotions. Exactly, since they bond so hard. Exactly, that's exactly what it is. They bond so hard, and you're never gonna find the depth in another person than a Scorpio person. Okay, it's never gonna be the same. You said you've heard a lot about Mercury retrograde lately. Do you think it affects daily life? You're curious about astrology, but don't know that much. What's the most interesting part to you? Okay, Mercury retrograde is usually affecting, it depends, because if you have Mercury retrograde in your chart, you don't get affected because you're already used to the energy. So it's actually your time to thrive, okay, when you have Mercury retrograde in your chart. If you don't, well, in that particular case, okay, Mercury retrograde rules communication, it rules travel, and then it rules cars and vehicles and technology, okay? So during Mercury retrograde, you might have technology breaking, you might have travel delays, okay? It's not a good time to sign contracts, okay? Unless maybe it's something that you started earlier, okay? But even then, if you're signing some sort of big contract, I would get someone to double check everything, or you be extra careful and read everything thoroughly if you are signing contracts, because unfortunately, sometimes you still have to live your life, right? You can't live your life based off the transits all the time, right? And then what else? It's communication and miscommunication. Sometimes you have exes coming back. It's kind of like a time to just like wrap up things. It's not really a time to start anything new, okay? When you have any retrograde, because we also have Venus retrograde going on right now, okay? So it's this, but you also don't have to live with it, right? Because it was Mercury retrograde and I was traveling. I've traveled during Mercury retrograde before too, and it was fine, right? So it's kind of like, it depends. It also depends what sign it's in and what house you have that sign in, right? So it's going to affect different people at different times, right? You said that's true about Scorpio, we ruin you for others. It is. Literally, Scorpio, literally, that is so true. It's so true. It literally is. That's why everyone becomes obsessed with a Scorpio, because they know, like when they wrong the Scorpio, it's game over. Okay, it's done. And they know the depths of it, because Scorpio can meet people at wherever they are at, essentially, okay? So that's what's amazing. You said Scorpio, Black Moon, Lilith, you said opposite Taurus and Saturn. Be careful with that energy in there. That could be the type of energy that might do anything to get to the top, okay? Even if that means sleeping their way to the top. I'm not saying this is you, but just like the nature of the energy, okay? You said, how did it feel traveling around this time? How did it feel to be around all the people? I didn't mind. I actually really enjoyed it. I love traveling. It was fine, honestly. But you know what's interesting? Everywhere that I went, there were protests. So I was like, what is going on? Like, I just like somehow ended up in that city where there was a protest. So it's just like really interesting. Just like the life of, you know, obviously I wasn't in it, right? But I was really close to it. Like at one of the cities that I was in, I was like staying right on the street, like literally like down here. And the protest was here. And I didn't even know what was going on. At first the person said that it was a parade. And I was like, okay. And then later on, I found out it was a protest. And I'm like, okay. And then another one of the cities that I went to, same thing. I'm walking and then I see all these people and I'm like, okay, let me go see what's going on. And then I see people protesting there too. And then I'm like, okay, like, let me get out of this. And then I went, you know, my other way. But yeah, it was fine. Honestly, it was fine. You said, how can you find your friend's ascendant if she doesn't know her exact birth time? Okay, I don't do the rectification like professionally, but you can know a lot. Depends how old your friend is. To find the rising sign, if you know the approximate time, it'll be helpful. Like, you know, was it morning? Was it afternoon? Was it evening? Okay, so then you can narrow it down, and then you can look at the ascendant, descendant, IC, midheaven axis to see which one resonates the most, but mainly off of Saturn, based off of Saturn, okay? That's how I realized that Saturn is running the show down here, because you can literally figure out people's rising sign based off of their Saturn transits, okay, and their life, and just like whatever Saturn placement they have. So if your friend is around 27 or like Saturn return, that's going to be very easy, because then you'll know like what's like major happening in your friend's life, okay? Because let's say your friend is going through a divorce, and your friend probably has Saturn in the 8th house, okay? Or in general, let's say your friend's going through a divorce right now, they're probably going through a Saturn in the 8th house transits. This is what I mean, okay? This is what's annoying about Saturn. So that's usually how you can figure out, okay, basically the rising sign, like give or take. You'll have to play around with the numbers when you kind of have like a gauge. But yeah, usually what I do, like when I'm curious, I just focus on the energy, because I am super psychic and intuitive, okay? It just kind of comes through the information when I'm focusing on and thinking about it so much, and thinking about all of like the potential and like shuffling around. It's kind of like a puzzle, you know? But yeah, it's based off of the Saturn, basically, is going to tell you, okay, what's going on with the Saturn, maybe the current Saturn transit your friend is in, or their current, or the Saturn in their like natal chart, okay? That'll tell you. You said Saturn retrograde. You said you mean not natal Saturn, both, okay? You can look at the natal Saturn, and you can look at the Saturn transits, okay? So this is what I mean. Let's say your friend was going through your friend's Saturn return. Let's say they're 27. That's a Saturn transit anyways. That'll give you like, that'll make it the easiest, okay? If your friend is having their Saturn return, usually, okay? If not, if they're younger, you know, you can kind of see what was going on during the Saturn transit blocks, okay? Like when I say blocks, like it's a 3-year bracket, okay, for Saturn's transit. So you'll see what was going on during that period of time for your friend, okay? But yeah, usually Saturn return, like if they're older than the Saturn return, that's the easiest way, in my own opinion. Like let's say they're over age 27, that's the easiest way for me, at least, to kind of hone in on the energy. Let's say they had a kid around the Saturn return, maybe they have Saturn in the 5th house, for example, okay? Just like a random example. So it could be this. You said, do I think that there's a correlation between ascendant and phase shape and structure? Sometimes, but you know what I've noticed too? Sometimes you have aspects to the ascendant. Sometimes even aspects to the sun can also tell you about how the person looks. You said you're a Scorpio, you've been fine with being single your whole life. You saw a video on your Venus in the 10th house and it resonated. Yeah, I mean, sometimes, again, Scorpio like looks at the worthiness of people. Do you know what I mean? You said you have to be on a stage, but not right now. I think that's your Sag energy. Sag energy wants to be seen in that way. Is it Sag sun that you have? Let me know. You said, what types of things happen for people during a Saturn return? Depends what house you have Saturn in, okay? It's always going to be different. Depends what house you have Saturn in, but this is what I mean. Everyone freaks out about the Saturn return, but you're always in a Saturn transit. So Saturn is literally controlling everything, okay? So it doesn't matter, because your Saturn return is a Saturn transit. The whole reason the Saturn return is maybe like a big deal for people is because Saturn is putting you, when you're going through the return, or the first one, okay, it's putting you into adulthood, okay? So it's clearing all these things that don't serve you in terms of your path. Usually you'll find what you're meant to be doing in this life around your Saturn return, okay? Up until that point in time, it depends what you're doing. If sometimes you'll notice if people are doing shady things or like criminal activity, sometimes they get caught around their Saturn return too, okay? So it kind of depends, because Saturn is karma, right? I've seen that with some criminals online or whatever, like people, you know, that I would like look up and learn about them, right? If they were doing shady things prior to their Saturn return, sometimes they get caught around the Saturn return, right? So it depends sometimes what you're doing prior to the Saturn return to see how it's going to pan out for you, okay? But it depends on what house you have Saturn in, okay? Because that's going to give you more information. Let's say you have Saturn in the 7th, you could go through a breakup during your Saturn return. Let's say you have Saturn in the 6th, you could go through a diet change. For example, let's say you have Saturn in the 5th, around your Saturn return, you could get more in tune with your inner child. Saturn in the 4th, you get usually restricted for Saturn in the 4th in terms of your work, so you're clearing karma around the home and the family if you haven't cleared it prior, okay? You said, speaking of retrogrades, is quitting a job one of those things you should also wait on after retrograde? Up to you and your discernment. Usually find, if you can find another job, unless you have financial, like, you know, cushion, probably finding another job first will be beneficial for you, unless you have some sort of income coming in before you quit your job. You said your Saturn return was really easy and really fun. Exactly. You have Saturn in the 12th house and it's been really difficult. Exactly. So it depends on you as a person, right? It depends what you're doing prior to the Saturn return. If you're resisting things, if you are, you know, messing around, if you're not responsible. Like some people, what I noticed, okay, I noticed this with some public figures, you know, some of them I've noticed, like, let's say they're kind of like all over the place, right? Here, there, everywhere, having fun with everybody and everything, right? Well, some of them end up having a kid around their Saturn return, which is pulling them into responsibility, for example. How do you know if your Saturn return happened? It's usually age 27 to 30 or 28 to 31. That's Saturn return, the first one, okay? The second one is around the 56 mark-ish, okay? And then 56, 57, and then the third one, if you live that long, is around like 84-ish, okay? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's exactly what's happening. I'm just responding to one of you guys. You said, what if you have Saturn in the first house? That's like an identity thing, okay? So when you have Saturn in the first, you get restricted on your identity. Also, in terms of like your personality and all these things. Also, Saturn in the first gives you the undertone of having a Capricorn or rising, okay? So what does this mean? You're authoritative, but people could be threatened by you. So you have issues with authority a lot of the time, okay? A lot of the time, Saturn in the first could be interested in working for themselves or, you know, kind of like climbing the higher echelons of society, like the managers and these types of things, right? CEOs or whatever. So that's Saturn in the first house. So you get restricted by the father, usually for Saturn in the first, or the dominant masculine role in your life in terms of being your own person. So when you have your Saturn return or you're going through the Saturn in the first house transit overall, you could be coming more into your identity, okay, more into your own person, being your own, you know, self, right? That's the first house. When you have first house energy, you're meant to express the self. Saturn being the father, dominant masculine role in your life, teachers, managers, they restrict you in this area. Saturn in the third, for example, could be school and speech and communication, okay? So it's this, it's usually the area that you struggle in, and then later on you are meant to master. That's what your Saturn energy is. You said, they said, Sad is the, you said the 7 years when your Saturn transits, you're interesting. Saturn, we're always in a Saturn transit. That's just the way that I see it these days, honestly. Like everything down here is Saturnian in my opinion. I can't say it enough. You're always in a Saturn transit, so it's just like, the thing is, the way that I see it, it's like you want to transcend it, right? So it doesn't control your life. So you want to have the awareness. This is what I mean by the transits and why I don't really follow them, because it's like you don't want to live within the transits. Like you want to have it at the back of your mind, like take it with a grain of salt, right? And be like, okay, this is happening, but you don't want it to rule your life, essentially, okay? Okay, if you guys want your own natal chart reading, Synastry reading, Progress natal chart reading, if you guys would like your own mini natal chart reading, okay? If you guys want business guidance, okay? So I have one-on-one in terms of we meet once and you want a consultation, I have that available. Or if you guys want one-on-one business guidance, the program, I have that available as well. All of that is going to be on my website in the description box below. You guys can send me an email and we'll go from there. Thank you so much for being here today, you guys, for your likes, your shares, your subscribes. Thank you for being a part of the channel, and I hope you all have a beautiful rest of your day or evening, wherever you are. Bye.